Garland in the corner. He's got it.
Feed stamp. Pow with the right hand.
Mitchell shakes. To the basket. And thunders it home. Oh! Mobley throws it down.
And Allen blocked the shot at the rim.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Roan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. It's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. It is a Thanksgiving mailbag episode. I am very excited to be answering these questions, and I am thankful for all of our listeners. You guys are the absolute best. We do appreciate all of your feedback, all of your kind words, all of your questions when there are no games for us to talk about. And I'm also very, very thankful for my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. We lost a dear loved one today in the Rodriguez household. Our living room rug just got decimated by the dog's diarrhea. So I've been up since 5 a.m. After having discovered that. But you know,
it's a shame that rug really tied the room together.
It really did. Luckily, it was a very cheap rug, but. All the OxyClean and the various cleaning solutions on the planet weren't taking that smell out, so we had to pull the ripcord, man.
Hey, you know, sometimes Todd's got to do what Todd's got to do. I get it.
Listen, man. Here's the thing about him, because I know you've got Noni is a very vocal dog. She'll let you hear it. You know, Todd doesn't do that. It's like, hey, man, can you bark before you just unleash in the middle of the night? Like, we'll take that.
Well, my pup's done that too a couple times. Like, she doesn't bark, but she whines. She's got many different pitches of whining. It's very freaky. It's like she's communicating to me. But
Todd just completely voided his bowels with nary a noise.
Oof, jeez. Well,
what a world.
Hey, sometimes when you gotta go. I get it. But we got questions to get to as well. Let's kick things off with our buddy Mike from the Discord, who asked, what is your ideal rotation when fully healthy? So you can answer this in a variety of different ways. You can talk about kind of some pairings you're excited for, who your kind of top 9 or 10 is going to be. How do you want to take this, take the ball? Where are you running with it this way?
I think I'll just open with, I'll just kind of build it piece by piece, which is to say, you're going to start out looking at your starters. I think you've kind of been on this for a minute that even though Max does stuff that the team is really missing right now, I think it just kind of makes sense for DeAndre to remain the starter because of the point of attack defense, because of the insulation, because of the shot making at the highest of levels. So I think I start with there. Max is absolutely my 6th man, though. He's in the first group of subs 10 times out of 10. From there, I think Merrill's kind of earned his way into the 7th spot.
I agree with that. Yep.
Then I go, you kind of seeded this on the last podcast, and I wasn't all the way there yet, but I kind of think I am, which is that if the team is fully healthy, I'm okay with Jalen Tyson being the 8th guy above Lonzo Ball right this second.
I am too. And can I walk through? I know you're not done giving your answer, but I kind of want to walk through kind of the rotation. So if we're assuming that at least for starting pairings, Kenny's going to keep Darius and Jarrett together and Don with Evan together, what we kind of traditionally see is Mitchell and Mobley are that first sub out. I think in that instance, I want to bring in Max Strus. I want to have him available there. And I kind of go back and forth if I want to have Jalen Tyson come in to play with Darius and Jarrett, or if I want to have Lonzo in there. I think Lonzo's going to be lower in terms of total minutes than Jalen in some of these games, and you might put him lower in the rotation. I kind of like having Darius, Max, Lonzo out there, and then whichever power forward you're feeling best about, subbing in for Evan Mobley. Maybe you even are going Jalen Tyson and you're going real up tempo, right? Like you have Lonzo and Darius pushing the pace, Max out there for spacing, and Jarrett rim running. I think that's a really potent lineup. And then when Don and Evan come back in to take Darius and Jarrett out, I think that's where you put Sam in. And you can have Sam out there with Max Strus, right? And maybe that's when you're bringing in a Larry or a Dean. I think that's kind of the feel I want to have for the rotation. But I think it's less firm than it was last year. I think there's more fluidity based on matchups, based on who's been playing better. But I agree with you that the top 7, I think are, the starting lineup, the 2, floor spacing guards. And then I feel like that 8th is Jalen Tyson, whether or not he's going to be the 8th man to enter the game. Or I think that's irrelevant. I think he's going to be 8th in terms of minutes per game based on how he's played so far.
Yeah. So moving on down, I think Lonzo probably takes the 9th man minutes. And then 10th, I think for now it's still going to be Dean. And if they ever go to 11, I think that's real wild card territory. Is it CPJ in a lineup where Darius isn't on the floor? Is it Naquan if he's kind of earning his way in? Is it Larry? Who, I think has shown little spurts, but still hasn't really shown out too well just yet this season.
Thomas Bryant in some matchups.
Thomas Bryant, perhaps. So, I think that 11 spot is.
Proctor's been playing great. We're
I don't think Tyrese
guys.
Proctor's in any version of a fully healthy team rotation right this second. I think that's 26-27 talk to me.
I think there is a 5% chance that in 5 months from now, Tyrese Proctor has earned his way into that because I just love his composure. I do not think it's very likely, but I do think that there's a world where it exists that he has moved himself up in the rotation, particularly if there's a little bit of a shakeup at the trade deadline, which, could change the math on this a little bit.
Here's one thing I'll say is that I think just Proctor's position is playing against him much more than his pedigree or skill. Because I think for example, I think the chance of Tyrese Proctor being a rotation player long term for the Cavaliers is a couple order of magnitudes higher than Naquan Tomlin. But I think on this team right this second, Naquan Tomlin has a better chance of doing it this season, just because of you just gotta look at your peers. Is Tyrese Proctor really stealing minutes from Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Sam Merrill, or Max Strus, or Jalen Tyson?
I think those 4 are taking all the guard minutes, right?
Yeah.
That is the biggest hurdle because there is a lot more depth on this team, right? And I think Sam absolutely deserves minutes. I think Max has been fantastic for the Cavs.
Just the fact that Max is going to get pushed down to the 2, or Jalen will by Jalen's kind of emergence and clear. The coaching staff just clearly loves him, so it's I don't see a world in which Proctor can do that without the team committing to playing hilariously small, which I don't think is the best version of this team.
No, I agree with that. So I think the real answer is it's a little more up in the air than it's been in the past, right? Last year's Cavs team was a very deep team, but it's kind of rigid in terms of who played what role and what the style of basketball was going to be. There's a whole lot more options for Kenny. And I think it's interesting from our standpoint because we get to analyze what types of decisions he makes with options available to him. So really, really curious to see that. Question from Twitter. Corey, thank you very much for DMing this one over to me. I know it's too early to make definitive statements about Evan, but he's currently playing closer to a third banana like Chet Holmgren was for OKC's championship run. If this is who he is this season, organizationally, should we be focusing on DG's growth to be our second banana or Jalen Williams in this comp? Or is there an opportunity to make DeAndre Hunter the second offensive scoring option? I will go first here. I will go first because one, I think DeAndre Hunter, he is who he is. I think you can optimize who he is and you can highlight certain aspects of his game that maybe weren't on display in the same way in Atlanta. I think he's in a much, much better context in Cleveland, but I think he is who he is. Darius, I don't think you ever have to kind of highlight him the way that we're trying to trial run Evan Mobley scoring possessions and things like that. Darius is going to have the ball more than anybody on this team. And when Darius has the ball, he's typically making others better. And the other thing with Darius is what he needs to do isn't something that he hasn't shown before. Like there really isn't kind of that space to explore. I think the biggest things for Darius is one, physical maturity to take the bumps and bruises of a season, maybe get to the free throw line more, hold up on defense. And the other thing is just maturity, right? Like when you have a bad play or two, does it snowball where all of a sudden you have a couple reckless possessions in a row, right? Like I think that is one of those habits for DG that he honed in a little bit last season, but we can still see it. And I think sometimes he's more prone to that when he's not fully healthy, where, hey, I just missed a couple shots in a row. I'm going to throw my body at someone. I'm going to do something wild. And he needs to kind of rein that in. So I don't think picking either of those guys to kind of be the second banana is necessary, because the DG touches are what they are. They're always going to be there. And this season should just consistently be about how can we optimize the personnel that we have, namely Evan Mobley.
I think the spirit of the question is interesting. Because I do think if Evan, it's not looking like this is the season that Evan becomes our best player. Still a lot of season left, but right now it's just not the case. And in a case where he's not going and snatching that chain of his own teammates, so it's a bad use of that term, but whatever. I think what it does speak to is just that everyone else has to be a little better than their baseline for this thing to still look like a contender. Jarrett has to be a consistently impactful two-way player and finisher. Darius has to venture into high-volume scoring and high-volume playmaking, even under suboptimal circumstances from time to time. DeAndre has to be the optimized version of himself that also acts as a break glass in case of emergency shot maker at a slightly higher level than he's ever been asked to do. So the pressure just on, if Evan doesn't get to where we want him to get, and again, to Corey's point, no one's precluding that right now, or at least not on this podcast. He very well might get where we want him to get, or where we were hoping he might get going, through this offseason. Yeah. But if he doesn't, it doesn't mean it's all over, but it does mean their margin for error elsewhere goes down.
Yeah, I think that's, pardon me, totally fair. Totally.
You're going to be okay,
right,
Justin?
Now that I've cleared my throat, that was a really emotional answer that you gave, and I'm glad that you gave it. Corey also had a follow-up question along those same lines. If Evan's best version of himself is less of a creator and more a play finishing at the rim or pick and pop threes big, should we explore different archetype to pair with him at the 5? I'd love to see a player archetype similar to Sengun, Sabonis, or Jokic type at center, a strong rebounding center that does damage in the post but creates for others with a bit of spacing would complement Evan so well. Defensively, Evan can cover up for that type of archetype with their defensive lapses. One, I
want to jump in on this one first. You went first last time. I understand that impulse. And that could work. To be very, very clear, that could work in the road to trying to optimize Evan Mobley and the rest of this roster. Now, Şengün's and Jokic's, don't grow on trees, and Jokic is the best offensive player I've ever watched play this sport. So, but I get what you're going for, the spirit of this. Sabonis is a great post-up big. The lower end of that, still being a very effective offensive player while being more of a bruiser type rather than the nimble athlete that Evan and Jared are, where there's a little bit of the appearance of redundancy, I would say, between those two. I understand the appeal of going for someone like that, the lowest end of this that I think makes any sense would be a prime Valanciunas, not this version of him, but That's like the lowest end of that. And I get it. Evan probably is better equipped than most to help cover for those guys. But I would say if you were to go in that direction, and I don't think this is something like that would be such a wildly big thing that I would be very stunned to see happen anytime soon. That would be like a whole reimagine the whole team type of move. I would say that the small backcourt starts to feel real problematic. So even if a guy like Şengün or Sabonis would really help optimize offensively against some defensive coverages and would help insulate Evan from needing to be as much of a self-creator, a lot of these guys take a lot off the floor on the other end. And when we see them at their most successful, you look at Houston right now, they're flanking Şengün with just an outrageous amount of size, strength, athleticism, length, and instinct on that end of the floor.
Because the spacing's so jacked up, they're missing a lot of shots. Like we have to get 40% of the offensive rebounds available to us in order to have a functioning offense.
Well, I'm talking about defense. It's like like it looks a lot different if it's Fred VanVleet and Şengün, not Amin Thompson and Şengün. And you already see it like when Şengün and someone like Reed Shepherd are sharing the floor at the same time, where it's like, okay, that's nice that you have good defenders. We're gonna find a way to get them switched on to our shooters, and we will put those shooters in the opposite corner and try to take these guys out of the play.
Even with your Valanciunas example, right? Like the Raptors were a really, really good defensive team in the regular season. What did the Cavs do every single time that they played the Raptors? All right, we are targeting Valanciunas on every single play. We're getting two-man action with DeRozan's man and Valanciunas' man, and we are just killing this team on every single possession. Like even when they had, Serge Ibaka and great wing defenders all across the team, they sat there at the trade deadline and said, we can't win with this. We have to get Marc Gasol. And the margins for that team, the margins for that team that had Kyle Lowry.
I believe they got Marc Gasol after they'd already traded DeRozan for Kawhi.
Yes, but I'm saying even I was going to make that point, which even with Kawhi Leonard, even with Danny Green, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, good perimeter defenders, Serge Ibaka, defenders, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. We have all of these defensive players, and we feel like Valanciunas is still too much of a liability. We're going to go get Marc Gasol, right?
Got you. Sorry.
And the margins were that thin. I don't think they get past Philadelphia if that's the case. I don't think if they get past Milwaukee if that's the case, right? So, it's really, really, really tough to cover for that archetype. And Jokic had a hell of a defensive season when they won, and they had good defenders around him. I do think
he's the best offensive player I've ever watched.
Right. And there just isn't a lot of that archetype because you look at assist leaders at the 5, it's Jokic, it's Şengün, it's Sabonis, and then it's Yusuf Nurkic, Nikola Vucevic. We're getting to a tier of player that does not excite me at all. Right. So it's one of those things where I understand the instinct, but to your point, it's really tough when you have two guards that are going to have the ball in their hands a whole lot. I think if you were ever shaking things up, it would be the kind of archetype that we talked about, even when we were talking about this for a third big, but a PJ Washington and Naz Reid, someone that allows you to defend with a little more space. Let's, basically a 3-and-D center rather than an offensive hub. When it comes to offensive hub, I still like Mobley's playmaking in the short roll. I think it's a little janky some nights this year because the spacing is off and some of his decision-making's been bad. But I've seen really good decision-making from him in that spot. I think DeAndre Hunter takes pressure off of you from a front court standpoint. So I'm not looking for a true hub at that position.
Yeah, I think to TLDR this, maybe if the offense crashes and burns in the postseason again, we need to start thinking about what that looks like, about some wilder thoughts about how this team generates looks against the best defenses in the league. I will say, with the exception of Jokic, that archetype has a hard time in the playoffs a lot too, because the defense is just swarm, and it gets just really, really hard for those players to take the time that you need to operate a successful post possession to get a clean catch when it matters. Like all that stuff just gets a lot harder. So again, I'm not. I don't think it's like a stupid idea by any means, but I don't think the roster is currently really built super well to accommodate that. You need to rethink a lot.
And I just don't think that type of player exists, at least in an established state. Like there might be a big that
Sabonis is probably the best like conceivably gettable guy, but where the Cavs are and apron hell, that's not easy either. So
yeah, you might have someone like Derek Queen that turns into a playmaking big that you can do a bunch of like fun stuff with, right? Like there might be a player that settles into that archetype, but I don't think anyone that's available for the stage where the Cavs are at. And that's such an overhaul that it's kind of like to make that seismic of a trade in season, even if it's something that's going to pay off long term. I don't think without a training camp and stuff like that you're going to be able to do that. That's like trying to build the plane in midair. And it's just going to leave you out of sync. And you know how much I value staying in sync, Carter. And that's why Zoom Workplace is so helpful, because Teams moves fastest when everybody's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. On the subject of trades, David emailed, thank you, David, very much. If the team continues to trend the way that they have to start the season, what, if any, moves would you consider at the deadline? Carter.
I was looking up and down at kind of the bottom of the league just to see like where the options might lie in terms of transactions. Obviously, Cavs do have a roster spot right now. You look at the guys who would be quote unquote tradable without rocking the boat too much. You're looking at Alonzo or a Dean probably are the two slots where I would say like that both are on expirings. That you have a little draft capital you can kind of look. So, you look up and down. There aren't a lot because like really what I'm looking for from an archetype perspective for this team right now is who can touch the paint on offense. But most importantly, who can touch the paint well enough that it matters. Because like. Mm-hmm. I'm not just going to go like I would need to kind of rethink the way my rotation is stacked in order to make a trade right now. Like if the answer in a trade is a backup point guard who I think is 10% better than Craig Porter Jr., I'm like, it just doesn't move me.
How much are we getting out of that?
Yeah. So like, and I certainly don't want to give up what limited assets we have to make a marginal upgrade for a maybe rotation player.
For a player that's only going to play when you're in this kind of state, right? Like if we are saying one fully healthy, it's Darius Donovan, Sam, and Max that are playing the guard minutes. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. So you look up and down, and it's really the backup point guard and the backup big spots that that scare me a little bit right now. You would argue Lonzo isn't one, and
yes, I would.
And like I would kind of say like, well,
that's the problem.
Maybe that's a problem, and also maybe it's just not if all 20 of Lonzo's minutes come with Darius or Donovan on the floor. And I do think generally that's looked better. When like his usage eating guard list minutes have looked the worst, for him. So maybe that's where you're looking at. And then if not that, it's like you're looking at backup bigs, but the salary slots just aren't really there because you're looking at like maybe a Dean or a Larry upgrade. Larry's a minimum guy. Dean is so affordable that like, it's one of these downsides to Kobe signing so many good deals is you look, it's like, man, like Nick Batum, they were playing the Clippers. I'm like, I wonder if like a guy like Nick Batum is gettable in a pinch. Just someone you trust a little that's like shown it at a high level isn't going to be afraid of the moment of the postseason. He's like at like $6.5 million for 2 years. So it's like there just aren't a lot. There are no names that currently jump out at me. I mean, the best one I got for you in terms of a name of a player that I just like, even though I don't actually think he solves a lot of their needs, is a guy like Najee Marshall. Mm-hmm. If Dallas's season just continues to go awry, good size wing, good defensive profile, and a nice floater when he gets in the paint, which is why he jumped out at me. It's like he's one of those like weird skill all-stars where it's like, why is Najee Marshall so good at floaters? But that's one of his things.
Yeah. Very, very thorough answer. I appreciate your thorough answer because it gave me some opportunities to do some research too, because I was looking up, how does Lonzo look when he's with Donovan? It's a +7 net rating. How does Lonzo look when he's playing with Craig Porter Jr.? +7 net rating. Like when he's out there with another guard that's actually getting downhill rather than playing as a solo point guard, things are working really well. And both you and I really like his minutes with Darius as well. I think when it comes to the Cavs and trades, whenever there's a transaction window, I think they're going to look, regardless of how they're playing. I think they're going to look what opportunities are available for them. As you said, any core shakeups I think are insanely unlikely. It's just too difficult to navigate. It's tough to find, opportunities under the second apron. But when you get this kind of internal push, right, from some guys further down in the roster, I think it opens up optionality, right? Like I think their confidence in Jalen Tyson helped enable them to say, all right, we're going to keep Sam and we're going to go in a different direction with Lonzo Ball. But Ty Jerome will let him walk. And, maybe the same type of thing happens here where, hey, we feel a lot better about what Craig's given us. And we feel he can be a rotation player if we need to call upon him. And we like what Tyrese Proctor is giving us. And we like that as a third option here if, injuries arise. So, but we don't feel great about our backup power forward situation, right? Like, let's explore what options are available. We have, Lonzo's contract that we can work with. We have other guys in the rotation. We can look at that sort of thing. Or maybe you feel really good about it, right? Maybe Larry finds his groove, gets more comfortable, and you do address the guard position. I think those types of moves in the margins, I think the types of players and the potential pain points with this roster that you identified are accurate. I just feel like they are going to examine what options are available to them at the trade deadline, regardless of that. And the other factor that might change things is, does the health situation change? Does Max have a really bad setback? Does Lonzo get injured in a serious way? And that changes the calculus. I think that type of situation might be where someone that they do value within the rotation now becomes matching salary that they may have to attach a pick or two with to go get someone that can fill a need this season and maybe potentially beyond.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would ask is, like, if in terms of looking at archetypes, the only other kind of angle to explore is the backup center spot. Like, if you just want to commit to Evan, if they want to really read into the Evan at the 5 numbers that haven't been that good, like, maybe you go look for a different kind of 5-man. You look at, I don't know, like see what call up Phoenix and ask, hey, we know you have no draft capital. How does a little matching salary and a super protected first for Mark Williams sound, or something like that?
I don't think we're going to do any trades with Phoenix.
Me neither. But just throwing out a name, not actually suggesting that as a trade. But like, yeah, maybe there's that. Remind me if you remember offhand, buyout rules. They've got to be less than the mid-level when they're bought out, basically.
Yeah, I think it's something along those lines. It's really restrictive with the Cavs being in the second apron.
Yeah, because like I was looking at local boy CJ McCollum, and Wizards are terrible, and
that would be so much fun. I would love that.
How nice would he be? But like, makes too much money, so he's not eligible to join this team. So like, it's just kind of slim pickings, even if you're looking at the buyout market. Maybe a Grayson Allen or someone like that hits the market, but like there's just not
Probably
a lot
not
of
going
that
to be an avenue available to us.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of that at the bottom of the league right now, where you're looking at these teams that stink as of now, but like you don't see a lot of the guys who are making like 13, 14 million that are like, oh yeah, they'll probably be available and the Cavs absolutely will scoop them up. Like I just don't see that right now.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think the largest things with the Cavs, like if you're talking about the current way that they're playing, I think it's getting Darius back healthy. I think it's getting Evan back on track, right? Like getting the core playing like we know they can play is the biggest thing, right? Like all these little ancillary moves on the sides make a difference, but we need them to be who they are and continue to build upon the success that they've had in the past, right? And I think if that component doesn't click into place, nothing else on the margins matters. Mason asked a question. Now, this is actually a conversation that we've had offline in the Discords, but he said, you talked before about the league trending towards shying away from guarding the corners as tightly. In your opinion, are the Cavs doing this, and is it the defensive philosophy, or when we see this happen, is it just breakdowns, and does it feel bad when it happens? I won't talk about how the Cavs are defending the corner yet, because that ties into the next answer I'm going to give. But what Mason's referring to specifically is when we had Mike Lucas on to fill in for Carter earlier, we were talking about leaving the strong side corner and helping on the drive in those situations. And Mike and I were saying that's something that you're just never supposed to do, right? Like that is never the correct decision. No coaches would say that. And then about a week or two later, I was listening to the Dunked On podcast, and Nate was talking to Seth Partnow, and they were talking about how teams, when they wanted a defender out of the way, that they're worried about their ability to impact the drive as a help defender. Let's say a Rudy Gobert type. What they would do is when they're covering, let's say, a stretch big or basically, a good defender that's on a player that can shoot the threes, they would park that player in the strong side corner and attack on that side of the floor, knowing that Rudy Gobert can't help off the strong side corner to impact the drive. Teams are now apparently living with that. That is an adjustment where they're saying, hey, we're okay with you showing some help on the drive and then giving a late contest on the corner when they make that strong side pass, because it's just defenses reacting to the offenses there. I don't think when we see the breakdowns for the Cavs, that's necessarily the same thing that we're seeing. I do think you are going to see some show and recover there, and teams will live with those late contests. But I think some of the lapses are guys falling asleep or helping on the drive and not getting back to even kind of show that help and get that late contest there. When we see those breakdowns, I think those are true breakdowns, and they look really bad when they happen. But there are some really interesting stats about the Cavs corner 3-point shooting defense that I'll get into in a moment. Arden, your thoughts?
Well, first off, part of me, like, actually, I'll just say this. I was like, when this got posted, I was like, did we talk about this? Because I don't remember talking about this. So I was having a bit of a crisis of confidence reading the rundown before we went live today. But I want to kind of just generally note that I actually think that the Cavs defense has been really good the last 5-6 games. And while I had some real gripes with their attention to detail on that end, obviously the defensive glass has been a persistent bugaboo for them, but I feel like their actual base defense has been pretty darn good. And I just checked, because I feel like there's some lingering perception of a step back from the defense from the beginning of the year, where I think they were playing a little reckless. Excuse me, gross. And not connected. But they're at a 109.2 defensive rating their last 5 games.
Wow.
Like,
that was good.
Funny enough, it's 9th in the league over those 5 games.
And they're 6th on the season?
They are, I'll tell you in 2 seconds. They're up to 6th defensively. Okay. So I think they're doing fine on that end now. I think the point of attack's been just a little bit better. And yeah, overall, I just kind of wanted to generally note that.
I do wonder how much of this is us falling into something that we have talked about in the abstract a lot, which is when the offense isn't clicking, you magnify on any defensive lapses, your margin for error gets so much more slight, and those giving up a second chance opportunity, giving up an open drive to the basket, giving up a corner three, it just feels so much worse. Like we've talked about how the Cavs defense has been really good in the playoffs. Like even in the series that they lose, it's been really good for the most part. And it's been their offense that fails them. But despite that, it always feels like, man, they just couldn't get a stop when they needed to, when so much of that is kind of removing your margin for error to an unrealistic degree when your offense struggles as much as it has. Do you think that might be a little bit of the case?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that I just feel like this whole season has been trying to figure out what I'm actually grumpy about versus what's like, again, like I always talk about chasing symptoms. I feel like I've been chasing a lot of symptoms this season. Did want to just do a quick check-in on kind of the chaos stats. The Cavs are 11th in steals per 100%.
Hey, no, don't you do that.
Okay, I'll wait.
I've got a whole shtick prepared. Let's answer a question that's just conveniently in here from our dear friend and all-around good guy, Nom. Can you guys do a deep dive on how the defensive approach differs from last season?
Clearing out.
I also got a question from Tud, who asks, what trends have you seen from the analytical data that may differ from last year's schemes on both offense and defense? I'll start with just defense, because if I talk about all the research I did for both offense and defense, this solo camera is going to be on me forever, and I'm going to run out of steam. But for defensive changes, teams are actually shooting less frequently from three against the Cavs than they did last season, down 1.5%. And they've gone from the 8th fewest threes allowed from a frequency standpoint to 6th fewest. And that decrease is almost entirely from the corners. The Cavs are 14th in corner three-point frequency, down from 27th last year. So they used to be a team that really, really gave up a lot of corner threes. They actually haven't been outside the bottom 10 in three-point corner frequency for their opponent since 2018, 2019. And they're all the way up to 14th. So that decrease has entirely come from the corners. They're above the break three frequency is exactly the same. So they are giving up fewer three-point attempts. Mid-range and rim attempts are identical. So the defense looks exactly the same when it comes to that kind of stuff. Now, some interesting thing for the hustle stats. They are second in deflections per game behind OKC. They get 23 deflections a game. They are 11th.
Where were they last year? Do you have that handy?
I think they were around 17th. That's one of the spots where I didn't have last year. They are 11th in steals this year. They were 14th last year. They are 4th in blocks. Last year, they were 27th in blocks, which actually really surprised me. Contested shots. We talked about how there was a pretty big gap in terms of how many shots they were contesting this season. They're now up to 14th in contested shots versus 5th last year. So that's trending in the right direction. Now, this one I found interesting, once again, kind of speaking to how we feel about the team overall when some of these issues might just be the offense not giving them a margin for error. Defensive rebound percentage. They are 13th this year. Last year, they were 22nd. So they've actually moved up quite a bit when it comes to how many defensive rebounds they're securing. And offensive rebounding percentage is 19th this year, down actually from 15th last year. So those are kind of some of the defensive changes in terms of their activity on the defensive end and how they go about ending those possessions with defensive rebounds.
I did just check deflections. Of course, there's no, for whatever reason, there's no ranking on the deflections page of the stats.
Yeah, you got to do the manual counting.
And you wrap before I could count. They were about middle of the pack last year in deflections, 16.2. It could definitely in the middle, group overall. Mm-hmm. One thing that jumped out at me though, the Thunder last year led the league with 21.4 deflections per game. Cavs are at 22.9. So they actually are getting their hands on the ball more than last year's Thunder team, which really, really jumped out at me. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. But like it does feel like there is an actual stylistic change underway. Do I think everyone's playing different? That was kind of my question to you, is like, is this just they're playing Lonzo and Lonzo plays more chaotically? And they're playing Tyson and Tyson plays more chaotically? Or do you feel like a guy like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are playing, or Donovan Mitchell are playing materially different? Like, is this representative of an ethos change or a personnel change?
I think this is an ethos change, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because Stan Van Gundy on the Low Post was talking about how he talked to Kenny about this, how Kenny said that was one of their big philosophy changes of the offseason was we're going to be okay with fouling more this year. We're okay with gambling. We want to be physical. We want to get our hands on balls. We want to put pressure on other offenses and make them feel uncomfortable. And that's going to lead to some breakdowns, right? Like when you gamble, you're going to have possessions where it doesn't work. But I do think, when you look at some of these overall stats, you're not allowing more frequent shots at the rim than you were last year. Like that rate is exactly the same. So it's not like you're giving up a ton more of those possessions. I do think some of those single big lineups, we got to have been a little leaky, but I do think as the personnel gets better and you're playing fewer two-way players and things like that, I do think that that's going to be a little more sound. But I think what I'm seeing on the defensive end here is a lot of the stuff we talked about in the offseason that we wanted to see changed. We wanted the Cavs to make teams feel a little bit more uncomfortable. We didn't want them to sit back in a base shell. How many corner threes they give up has always been a pain point when you talk, when we hear from Cavs fans. That's one of the things they bring up. Well, that's one of the things that's been addressed. That it has been a lot better this season. So I'm looking at these overall numbers, and as much as you and I gripe about, hey, what are they working on the offensive end, and don't always feel that, I do feel on the defensive end, there's been a material change with how they're approaching defense. There's been a change in the results, and I do think that, this is the foundation of something that matters. This hasn't been an issue in the past, but you're going from it potentially, being a not an issue to potentially a strength if you can make other teams uncomfortable and lower the bar how good your offense has to be in order to be better than their offense.
Yeah, the only thing I'll pick some nits with is I don't think the rebounding's been materially better than last year. Their ranking is better. But last year, their defensive rebound rate was, drum roll please, 70%, which was 22nd in the league.
Rebounding is way up this year, in general. Like teams are crashing the offensive glass at rates we've never seen.
Yeah, they were 22nd at a 70% defensive rebound rate. They've actually dropped a full percentage. They're down to 69.1, but they're 13th. So, I think
22nd to 13th, yeah.
So, even though, and I know that it's a funky thing because what actually matters is relative to your peers, right? Yep. So, but I do think from just watching the games, it feels like the defensive rebounding is down. Now, you're speaking to a league-wide trend of crashing the glass a lot better. I do think it exposes some of the Cavs' weaknesses. I do think you can still look at individuals and say you need to do better. The fact
strongly agree.
Yeah, like Evan and Jarrett's defensive rebounding are down like a combined 3.5 or 4 per 36. That's
and
bad.
Again, there's just been too many possessions where the ball hits the ground and guys are watching. It's Cam Newton in the Super Bowl here. Go get that ball.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where I feel better about the other stuff on defense. Because I think that what I'm seeing, it's not just seeing that a change relative to last year or relative to their peers. I'm seeing a blend of the two styles of locking in, playing good, real defense at the point of attack and at the rim, while also getting a little more chaotic with what you're doing. And then, but the rebounding I think is just a little bit worse. I think their attention to detail has been a little bit worse. I don't think it was that good to start with. So Like
it was 22nd last year. You're right.
So I'll that's my only nit to pick on that very well researched take, my friend.
I think that's a very fair point to bring up, because I do feel like as a collective they can be better. And part of why I really like frequency stats versus, okay, like what's the accuracy of opponent shooting and stuff, is what you do over an 82 game season. That's nice. Like, it gives you a healthy sample size that you can feel good about. But when you're in the playoffs and you're playing against better offenses and teams that are going to test you in a variety of ways, what you gave up in terms of opponent shooting in the corner for a season isn't going to matter as much if you're playing an offense that is really proficient at getting those shots. So if you are limiting the frequency of attempts and keeping teams, taking long twos, which the Cavs have the last 2 years, they've been phenomenal at forcing teams to take those kind of long mid-range shots. If you're doing that kind of stuff, it helps mitigate some of that shooting variance.
Yeah. So I'm pretty pleased with the defense overall at this point. I think it's only going to get better as they get healthier and are playing more consistent minutes. But, on the other token, I've been really happy with a guy like Naquan Tomlin's defense. Much happier than I expected to be, by the way. I thought that was going to be a freaking tire fire, and it has not been.
When we're on the subject of giving some flowers here, Jalen Tyson has been improving.
Much better.
There has been
much
in-season improvement on the defensive end, and I'm really, really impressed by that. I feel like his balance and understanding of almost like his own physical mechanics has just been better on both ends. Like he just seems to be seeing the game better and it's moving a little bit slower. And I think that's helping him on both ends of the court. I'm so impressed with how much work that guy has put in. Like, it is just so evident of how hard he has worked to get better on both ends of the floor.
Absolutely, buddy.
All right. So I'm going to finish answering Tud's question, the part 2 of this for the offensive change. So overall, the Cavs are taking more threes. There's been a 3% increase in their 3-point volume, with a 4% increase in those above the break threes. So not from
that
the corner.
tracks.
Yeah. So they're shooting 1% fewer from the corner, and that has been made up for by a lot more shots above the break. I think ideally for a healthy offensive ecosystem, I'd like to see some of that migrate back over to the corner. And I also think that that's probably going to be the case when you have Darius, back and working with his team. I think Max helps you there. I think Sam helps you there. But just a few too many above the break threes. And anecdotally, it feels like a lot of those have come in transition, right? Like I feel like Lonzo, DeAndre, a whole lot of guys have kind of taken these shots in transition, where when the Cavs are rolling offensively, we get some of those better looks.
Yeah.
Mid-range, great. It's steady. They're 23rd in frequency. I believe they were 22nd last year. 4% fewer shots at the rim. Obviously, this needs to change. We've talked about how that is dramatically different when Darius is on the court. But that is one of those kind of stats that you would like to see change. Transition frequency is up almost 3%. They are running 5% more frequently off of steals, which I found to be really interesting. So when they get those steals, when you force a turnover, the Cavs are out there, turning that into a transition opportunity, and they're really pushing off of live rebounds as well. They are on 34% of live rebounds. They push and it results in a transition opportunity. So a shot that goes up in transition, that's the 5th highest rate. Last year was 20th. So we're really, really seeing a change in tempo when it comes to this Cavs offense.
Yeah, I think that all generally tracks. It doesn't feel like they've all of a sudden become a mid-range team. It doesn't. I will say the rim frequency, I think, is a bit of a mislead, because I think last year they put a lot of rim pressure even when their possessions didn't end with a shot at the rim. So and I think there's a big distinction there.
So you feel it's actually lower, and I think that's reflected in when you see some of those drive stats and stuff like that those are down as well.
Yeah. So that is exactly what I think, which is that yes, the shot diet might look semi-similar, But I even think the fact that the threes are migrating above the break is reflective of that lack of pressure, because corner threes are the best, the best jump shot in the game. And the fact that that's going down just a little bit, and the above the break stuff is going up, I think is actually more a byproduct of the shots that they're creating when they're not cooking.
That's a good point.
And I think, again, I'm just going, like, rim pressure is going to be my buzz phrase of the season, because when they have it, they look like last year's offense, and when they don't, they don't. And I know you're gonna probably hit on some of the luck stats that you've pulled that are very, very good and very, very interesting, and like maybe is just a direct contributor to how this season has felt. But I will say, I think you make your own luck sometimes in this league, and you make your luck, and you get, you hit your open threes at a higher rate when it's being generated off of a drive and kick and a swing, as opposed to a drifting relocate just around the perimeter set of passes where you're not just getting the ball passed directly into your pocket as a shooter.
And the other part of that is when you have your best shooters on the court.
Sure, that helps.
Darius Garland, Max Strus, Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter at times, right? Like, you could probably argue like those are your top 4 shooters. Like Donovan certainly can get red hot, but he's kind of been around that career 36, 37%. These are your knockdown guys. And,
I kind of didn't realize Sam's missed 7 games this season.
It's a good chunk, right? Like we're coming up on game 20, so kind of a quarter of the way through the season, and he's missed about half of that. So like that has a big impact, particularly when you're out on Mac. You're already out when it comes to Max Strus. One thing I wanted to mention as I was coming up with the transition stats for us offensively is there has been a change for the Cavs on the defensive end that I forgot to mention, which is teams get a transition opportunity 61% of the time off of steals versus 69% last year. So the Cavs in a year where teams are pushing more than ever have really dramatically, improved their transition defense in terms of how frequently they're allowing those chances off of a live ball turnover. That's really surprising to me because there is such an emphasis on pushing the pace in those situations. So that's one of those things that I'm probably going to keep a keener eye on, because when I'm watching back, I'm not really looking at, okay, how often, what's their defense look like off of a live ball turnover? I'm going to watch for that the next couple of games, because that's a pretty big statistical jump. As you mentioned, some of those luck stats, wide open threes, they went from 9th to 12th this year, or 9th last year to 12th when it comes to wide open threes.
And that's volume.
Yeah, volume. In terms of accuracy, last year they were 1st. This year they are 19th. It certainly feels that way. Open threes, so let's call these the good looks rather than the great looks. They went from 4th last year to 1st this year. So they actually get a good number of those shots up where defenders within 4 to 6 feet. They went from 3rd to 17th in accuracy. So again, the shot just... The accuracy and the shot making has not been as good this season.
Yeah. And I will say, like, if you're going to slip 3 ranks and add 3 and jump up 3 ranks elsewhere, you're trading in the wrong direction, going from 9th to 12th in terms of the best threes you can get, and going from 4th to 1st in they're fine threes you can get. Like, that is, like, again, representative of a just slightly worse shot diet. And again, I do think it really matters where some of these passes are coming from in terms of shooters' comfort. There's just such a difference between a guy getting into the paint, hitting you directly in your shooting pocket, so you can just go up and shoot, and you're not thinking about kind of like getting your hands into the right spot, like you're just already primed and ready to go. I think there's just a little bit less of that this year, and it's affecting some of those luck stats. And like, I know everyone likes to yell at us when we quote the luck stats. This is me throwing a little bone to that crowd.
Yeah, and I would not call it luck stats, right? Like I think who's taking the shots is probably the biggest factor this year, and how we go about generating them hasn't felt as good. There have been times where we're taking threes because we can't get within the 3-point arc. That you're not going to shoot as well in that spot, and that's Well, I didn't love Boston's offense last year, and I want us to trend back to how we were last year. Let's take these defensive changes that we've seen, improve our defensive personnel as we get healthy, and get back to the offense of last year with more consistently utilizing Evan Mobley. I think you strike that balance. That's the version of this team that we felt could be there, you know, in the offseason. One last question here from Baldman Gets Paid. Do you think Kenny's in the hot seat in any way? What's your assessment of his tenure so far, both this season and overall last postseason included?
My word, bald man gets paid. No, I don't think that. I think he's been obviously last year. The regular season was just pure honeymoon. You know, even when he ran lineups I didn't like, they worked, and they just kind of ran everyone off the floor pretty much all year. And then the playoffs, obviously, you know, outduels Spoelstra. And I know Spo didn't have an awesome Miami team, but it does matter. That was the only thing I was worried about in that series is like, man, what if Spoelstra just, you know, kicks our ass? And he didn't do that. The Cavs ran them off the floor in that series. But, you know, and like I will always say, the important disclaimer of we don't know what we're talking about. We're not in the huddle. We're not in the game plan meetings. We're not grinding tape with these guys. We don't know who's contributing to what. But like I do think Carlisle had a few more answers in that series against the Pacers. You know, there were a few things that just like sitting from home, not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. Like, you know, it felt like the Pacers had that 3-2 zone solved, and we just kept going back to it, kind of hoping for different results. It seemed, again, everything has to be couched within it seemed, or it might have been, or whatever, because we're not there. This is, as we've always said, the hardest thing to analyze. In terms of this season, I mean, I think it's been fine. Like I obviously the product's worse. On the court right now. You know, Cavs have the 7th best point differential in the East through a quarter of the season, and I don't think anyone wants that to be where we live perpetually. But you know, Kenny's going through his own changes. He's implementing all these new guys to the rotation. He lost two of his 3 top assistants. Actually, I don't know if that's technically true. Two assistants that he talked about a lot last year that really mattered in Jordan Knott, Damari Carroll. Didn't they lose another one? Am I crazy?
No, I don't believe so. But
I don't remember.
I could be wrong.
Either way, there was some real brain drain even on the staff this year. And obviously they've replaced them with new coaches who are bringing their own thing. But that's another adjustment, a new thing to work through and to figure out. So, I mean, overall, have I felt like this year that Kenny is Kenny going to win Coach of the Year again? It's not looking like it, but I think that's more reflective of how little we know about coaching, that we're just kind of playing the results, man.
Yeah, Coach of the Year is which team overachieved relative to expectations. And the Cavs' expectations going into this year were they are the favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. So I think unless if you like go out and win 73 games, you're probably not winning it in that situation. No, I don't think that there's any hot seat or anything like that. And I believe it was Mark Stein. If it wasn't, I apologize. But he reported recently that there is no mandate from, you know, up top when it comes to the Cavs. So like there's a lot of patience. There's a lot of understanding about, you know, the reality of being in the second apron. Depending on what happens this year, if they came up short this year, it's not a guarantee of a massive shakeup or anything like that. So I think that there's a lot of confidence in the group that they have together, both from the coaching staff standpoint to the roster itself. And, you know, my biggest kind of reflection on his tenure so far is just, again, how much easier it makes analyzing the coaching when the coach is so transparent, because Kenny really does talk a lot about what he's trying, where he's felt he's come up short, what he's tried to do and wasn't able to do. Like even last year going into the playoffs, he talked about, I was anticipating being able to do a ramp up to playoff conditioning. Like we're going to get these guys more minutes to get ready for the playoffs. And we weren't able to do that because of injuries and the schedule and things that happened there. Like that to me is really, really interesting. Like that's a data point you don't necessarily get. Little pain points that we have, like you talk about the zone, the soft switching, things like that. It feels like we're playing a lot less zone than we were last year. We're not giving off soft switches in the same way. We're more aggressive on defense. Like we didn't get.
I'd really like to see. We need to hit up our second spectrum friends, get a sense what our switch rates are looking like this year on defense.
Like, it's not like that was something that was mentioned at the exit interviews that they were going to make those types of changes. And I don't know if we even heard a lot of that coming through training camp, but that was something we talked about all off season. So I'm always going to have a little bit of confirmation bias when I say that the little things and changes I'd like to make on the margins are the things that the team actually tries to implement after the fact. Like that I'm always going to be a little biased towards that, right? Because I happen to I put some thought into my opinions before I say them. So when I see that happen, I feel good about it. So I feel really, really good about the job that Kenny's done. It seems like there's a lot of buy-in and respect from the roster as well. I like the fact that they're using the regular season to experiment. I think this team has proved everything that it needs to in a regular season. So I do feel really, really good about the job that he's done here.
Yeah, he's a great coach. It'll take me a long time to feel any other sort of way. Just because he also, I'm predisposed towards him. I really believe in the kind of guy he is. The kind of communicator he is, the level of accountability he shows. Feels like a team player, but isn't a wuss. Isn't afraid to light the guys up and like the guys care when he lights them up. All that stuff matters in the league, and he can go away at any time. Even within an independent situation. But for now, I think he's doing a very, very good job, and from what is immediately observable at the least.
Yeah, totally agree. Once again, big thanks to our listeners for submitting questions. We would be absolutely screwed if we were trying to do this podcast without you guys, because there was no games to talk about, and we really, really do appreciate you guys sending them in. I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all, whoever you're celebrating with, I hope that you have a fantastic day and enjoy some time off, and hopefully we got a little Cavs resurgence here. We're getting a little bit healthier. We're going to get some good games. It's a long season, and it usually takes many shapes. So big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the video to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.